This began in actually 1939, and that was when Korchak was first approached by the Native Americans elders, the Lakota elders, and asked to carve a mountain and a monument for one of their great warriors. In this case, they had picked Crazy Horse. Now, Korchak didn't necessarily take that assignment right away. He delayed that, and between the time he delayed from 39 to 48, he actually volunteered and went into the armed forces and fought for the United States in World War II and was wounded on Omaha Beach.
Allied armies, troops of the United States, Great Britain, the Dominions, and forces of the men who had escaped from the occupied countries, all under the supreme command of General Eisenhower, set out by sea and air for Normandy. Germany was now being attacked simultaneously from Russia in the east, Italy in the south, and from Great Britain in the west. This was the operation planned 6 months before at Tehran.
It was no easy task. In Europe and the Pacific, months of savage, bloody fighting lay ahead. Every foot of the way was bitterly contested by a ruthless enemy. But step by step, he was pushed back by the Allied army. The underground forces of liberation knew their finest hour when the people of Paris rose to strike at the enemy. Even as the Allies battered at the gates, freedom returned to the City of Light. Freedom. This was the prize for which millions of free men had taken up arms, for which men had been willing to sacrifice their treasure and their lives. Only free peoples would be equal to the task of healing the wounds left by tyranny and aggression. But freedom cannot be secure without final victory, whatever the price that must be paid. It is in this knowledge that the Allied armies push relentlessly on, determined that with victory will come the fulfillment of the declaration made at Tehran, that all the peoples of the world may live free lives, untouched by tyranny, and according to their varying desires and their own consciences.
So after he got back from World War II, he came out here in 1948. And at that time, Standing Bear and him went throughout the Black Hills searching for a mountain. And they ended up coming to this mountain, and it was aptly named Thunderhead Mountain because of the fact that there is a lot of ore within that. It does attract a lot of lightning, but more importantly, it had all the physical features that you needed for a mountain carving. They rate granite based on its hardness, and this is extreme to hard. There's basically 4 seams in this mountain that are very tight seams, but they still have to go in and reinforce at times.
Then there was Korchak Julkovsky, just a few miles from Mount Rushmore, also in the Black Hills of South Dakota. He and his 5 sons are carving the figure of Chief Crazy Horse as a tribute to the American Indians. Julkovsky, now 61, has been planning and working on the project for over 30 years, ever since an Indian, Henry Standing Bear, asked him to carve a memorial for his people.
I had $174 to start this project. So I bought a cow and dug a well, lived in a tent down there, about 7 months. people are kind of skeptical about it.
To show the people his concept, Julkowski carved a huge detail model of Chief Crazy Horse. But when the monument is carved in the mountain, its size will be staggering. The Indian's head alone will be as large as the 4 heads of Mount Rushmore combined, and 4,000 people could stand in the area under the arm. Julkowski works without the benefit of government funds, preferring to keep his work independent.
Mr. Stuart Udall, I liked him very much. He was the Secretary of the Interior. He came here about 6 years ago. He said, Mr. Julkowski, how long will it take you to finish this project? And I said, I don't know, $5 or $10 million. He said, that's what I've heard. Well, he said, I'll tell you what you do. You come to Washington, we sit down, and we'll draw up an ironclad contract. And between the government, and yourself, and the Secretary of the Interior, and the Crazy Horse Commission. I said, an ironclad contract? I said, Mr. Secretary, tell me about those ironclad treaties you drew up with the Indians. Well, you know, he didn't get angry with me, thank heavens, because we are still good friends today. But you asked how much it's going to cost? It could have been done? Yes.
The skeptics and the doubters continue to question Korczak.
One day, years and years ago, I went down to watch the blast down at the studio. This fellow said to me, Mister, how do you know that Crazy Horse is in that mountain? Well, I looked at him, I didn't quite believe him, but he was serious. And I said, well, I'll tell you what I do. Every morning I go up there and I drill about 8, 10, 16-foot holes. And then I fill them full of dynamite. And just as I pull up the plunger, I say, Crazy Horse, are you there? And I push the plunger down and he says,
Korczak Julkowski calls himself a storyteller in stone. But this veteran of Omaha Beach is also a dreamer who hopes to build here someday an Indian cultural center and university and medical complex. There are experts who say it can't be done and skeptics who say it will never be done. But Korczak continues his dream, a tribute to the Indians of America and to man's endurance to build the impossible.
So when Korczak arrived back, there was another gentleman that came out here who wanted to do the same thing. He was a miner and he wanted to find out what was in this mountain. But anyways, the miner ended up building a cabin. Korczak came back and here he was. So those two actually became friends. And the son actually was a mountain carver for him for many years. And they had a very good relationship and friendship. So basically the carving started in '48. Korczak did that all alone for basically 10 years. And in order to support all the equipment and everything that they needed, after Ruth and him got married, they started a dairy farm and a lumber mill. And the proceeds that they earned off of that is what they used then to purchase all the equipment.